When the economy grows, everyone's happy. People spend more, companies invest, markets rise. But then, something breaks. Prices surge, demand falls, production slows down. And suddenly, recession. The economy behaves not like a stable machine, but like a living organism. It breathes, fluctuates, and changes rhythm. These fluctuations are what we call economic cycles. In this lesson, we'll explore why economies rise and fall, what phases these cycles include, what drives them, and what consequences they bring for people, businesses, and governments. Because to understand cycles is to understand the very logic of capitalism. What is an economic cycle? An economic cycle is the recurring fluctuation of economic activity, from growth to decline and back up again. Imagine a GDP chart that doesn't move in a straight line, but in waves. Those waves are cycles. They last for years, sometimes 5, sometimes 10, sometimes even 20. But the essence is the same. The economy never grows evenly. Cycles are not a system failure. They're a built-in feature of the market economy. Because where there are investments, risks, expectations, credit, and human emotion, there will always be fluctuations. Phases of the economic cycle. Phase 1. Expansion. It all begins with optimism. Businesses invest, production rises, unemployment falls, incomes grow. People spend more, banks lend actively. But along with this, inflation rises. Demand often overheats the economy, creating bubbles. Phase 2. Peak. This is the moment when the economy operates at full capacity. Factories are busy, workers are fully employed, inflation is high. It's the top of the mountain, beautiful, but from here, the only way is down. Usually, this is when central banks raise interest rates to cool the economy. And that becomes the trigger for the next phase. Phase 3. Recession. Demand drops, production contracts, unemployment rises. Investments freeze. People spend less. Companies earn less. The economy cleanses itself. Weak businesses disappear. Markets correct. It's painful, but necessary. A restructuring of the system. Phase 4. Trough. The lowest point of the cycle. Everyone's tired of pessimism. But it's here that new ideas, startups, and technologies are born. Credit becomes cheaper, policy turns supportive, and the economy slowly starts to grow again. A new cycle begins. Why do cycles occur? The economy doesn't move on its own. Behind every movement are people, policies, technologies, and expectations. That's why there are many reasons for cycles, but they all fall into 3 main groups. 1. Internal, endogenous causes. Behavioral factors, euphoria, fear, herd instinct. People invest when everyone invests and panic when everything falls. Credit cycles, excessive borrowing during booms, followed by defaults in crises. Investment waves, businesses build while it's profitable, then cut back massively. Innovation cycles, technological breakthroughs create new sectors. Boom, saturation, decline. 2. External, exogenous causes. Geopolitical events, wars, energy shocks. Pandemics, natural disasters, shifts in global trade or capital flows. 3. Political and monetary causes. Excessive fiscal or monetary stimulus. Delayed central bank reactions. Errors in forecasting or regulation. In other words, the economy is cyclical because humans are cyclical. We tend to overreact, stay too long in euphoria, and respond too late. Types of economic cycles. Not all economic cycles are the same. Some are short, like a sudden spark. Others are long, like an era. And if you look at the economy not year by year, but across decades, you can see it breathing in waves of different depth. 1. Short cycles, 3 to 5 years. The business rhythm. Let's start with the shortest ones, business cycles. They arise from ordinary fluctuations in demand, inventories, and credit. For example, companies see demand rising. They ramp up production. But by the time products reach the market, demand may have already shifted. Rest, excess goods, reduced output, decline, and then recovery again. It's a natural wave of market coordination. Such cycles are often driven by inventory adjustments or credit impulses. Banks lend heavily, the economy overheats, defaults rise, downturn, cleansing, new growth. These short cycles are typically described by the ADAS model or models of business fluctuations. Their average duration is 3 to 5 years, and they occur in almost every market economy. 2. Medium cycles, 7 to 10 years, the classical business cycle. These are broader waves, spanning entire generations of businesses. The French economist Clément Juglar described them back in the 19th century. He believed they form through investment activity and credit dynamics. When investing is profitable, businesses borrow massively, expand production, employment rises, incomes and consumption grow. But over time, profits fall, debt grows, risks accumulate. Then comes the correction phase, recession, followed by gradual recovery. These cycles usually last 7 to 10 years and are the primary focus of macroeconomists and policymakers. Central banks respond to them by adjusting interest rates. Examples: 2001 to 2008, a phase of expansion ending in the global financial crisis. 2009 to 2020, a new boom, which ended abruptly during the COVID shock. That's a textbook medium-term cycle. 3. Long cycles, 40 to 60 years, the Kondratiev waves. Now, let's zoom out. Viewed over centuries, the economy doesn't just fluctuate, it evolves in massive waves of innovation. In the 1920s, Russian economist Nikolai Kondratiev proposed the idea of long waves, cycles lasting 40 to 60 years, driven by technological revolutions. Each wave begins with a breakthrough, a new technology that reshapes everything. First wave, late 18th, early 19th century, steam engines, textiles. Second, 19th century, railways, steel, coal. Third, early 20th century, electricity, chemistry, telegraph, automobiles. Fourth, 1950 to 1990, oil, aviation, television, mass production. Fifth, from the 1990s, digital revolution, computers, the internet, mobile. Sixth, now emerging, the era of AI, biotech, and green energy. Each starts with optimism and new markets, but ends in saturation and crisis, when the old technological paradigm can no longer sustain growth. Then comes the next breakthrough. In essence, long cycles reflect the rebuilding of the economic architecture itself. They explain why the world moved from the industrial age to the electrical to the digital, and is now entering a post-digital era, where data, AI, and climate drive new value creation. Each wave redistributes the entire global economy. How to recognize which phase the economy is in? So, we know the economy moves in waves, but how can we tell which wave we're on right now? Because this isn't just theory, it affects everything: how we invest, how businesses plan, and how governments act. Look at the macroeconomic indicators. To identify the phase of the cycle, economists track key indicators, the pulse of the economy. The most important ones: GDP. If it grows steadily by 2 to 4% per year, expansion. If it falls for 2 consecutive years, recession. Unemployment. Low during growth, spikes during downturns. Inflation. Accelerates in booms, slows or even turns into deflation during slumps. Interest rates. Show how the central bank is reacting. Raising rates, the economy is overheating. Cutting rates, supporting a decline. Beyond macro indicators, there are psychological markers, often more accurate than data. Euphoria in markets usually means the end of expansion. fear and apathy usually mark the best time to start a new cycle. As Warren Buffett famously said, "Be fearful when others are greedy, and be greedy when others are fearful." Macroeconomic consequences. Economic cycles affect everything, from government policy to your own wallet. For governments, during expansion, more tax revenues, lower unemployment. During recession, the opposite, shrinking revenues, rising social spending. That's why governments must conduct counter-cyclical policy. For businesses, in booms, investment, expansion, and higher risk-taking. In downturns, survival, optimization, and efficiency. Smart companies plan with the cycle in mind, so they don't sink when the tide turns. For individuals, when the cycle is rising, more jobs, more credit, more opportunities. When it's falling, more fear, unemployment, and cutbacks in spending. Yet it's crises that give birth to new markets, ideas, and breakthroughs. The paradox is, decline is part of growth. Without downturns, there would be no renewal. How governments and central banks respond. The goal of macroeconomic policy isn't to eliminate cycles. That's impossible. It's to smooth out the fluctuations. Fiscal policy, cutting taxes or increasing spending during recessions. Monetary policy, lowering or raising interest rates. Automatic stabilizers, social programs, progressive taxation, unemployment insurance. The idea is simple. Cool the economy in good times, support it in bad ones. It's like flying a plane through turbulence. You can't remove the bumps, but you can keep the right course. Economic cycles are the heartbeat of the economy. They show that the system is alive, dynamic, and adaptive. Understanding them helps us think strategically, not emotionally. Because instead of saying, "Oh no, the market crashed," you start thinking, "We're just in another phase of the cycle," and that means opportunity. If you found this lesson valuable, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next episode, where we'll explore models of economic growth. Solow, Endogenous growth.